Assalamualaikum audience. Today I have brought something new for you. We were discussing human brain, but we were discussing it in the form of an MCQs point of view, or you can generally simply say that I am giving you the notes on human brains. This is a pictorial form or in the table form. You can easily memorize the anatomy of the human brain for your MCQs paper or for the general memorization of the components and parts of human brain. So don't waste your time and let's begin. So basically human brain is divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. The scientific name of the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain is mentioned here, which is proencephalon and mesencephalon and rhobencephalon. Forebrain is further divided into olfactory lobe, cerebrum and diencephalon, while the midbrain is divided into corpora quadrigemina and crura cerebri, while hindbrain is divided into cerebellum, conus varoli and medulla oblongata. So now look at the lateral view of the brain. When we look at it, we can see the cerebrum, which is largest part, comprises of 80 to 85% of the brain. There is a temporal loop under it, and there was a pons varoli, the hindbrain part, medulla oblongata, the hindbrain part, and cerebellum. Above it there is an occipital loop, and above it is a parietal loop. And between this is the central sulcus, porito-occipital sulcus and lateral sulcus. So the next part is the spinal cord, which is underneath the brain. The cross section of the spinal cord is here. We will see the detail in the next slide. The terminal of the spinal cord is here, and it is like this: conus medullaris and chorda equina, and there is phylum terminate and coccyx. When the spinal cord showing enlargement, there is cerebrum above it and cerebral enlargement and lumbar enlargement and phylum terminate. The cross section of spinal cord shows the grey matter in the center of the spinal cord, and above it is the white matter, and there goes the dorsal root, and it ends in the dorsal ganglion, which has sensory neuron soma, and the spinal nerve goes from here, and underneath is ventral root, and at the other side there is the motor neuron soma in between the grey matter. This is the cross section of the spinal cord. When we look at the TS of the spinal cord, it shows the central canal in the center, and white matter and grey matter, and there is anterior median fissure, and there is ventral root and ventral horn, lateral horn and dorsal root. Above it there is the posterior median fissure and posterior median septum. Next is the conduction of nerve impulse. Nerve impulse is conducted with the help of a stimulus, and there is Melian sheath and node of Ranvier, and direction of impulse is from repolarized, then axon cylinder, then depolarized, polarized and then polarized. In this way the nerve is conducted, nerve impulse is conducted. Meninges. What are meninges? The brain and spinal cord surrounded by connective tissues, membranes called meninges. There are three types of meninges: dura mater, arachnoid mater and pia mater. Dura mater was the outermost meninges. These are tough, thick and fibrous. They are attached to the inner side of the cranium, and its function is to protect the cranium. Arachnoid mater, it is the middle meninges. It is thin, vascular and formed of reticular connective tissues. Its appearance is like the spider web like appearance, and its function is protection and nutrition. Pia mater, it is innermost meninges. It is thin, lying in contact with the central nervous system, highly vascular, and its function is nutritive. The dura mater and arachnoid mater, the space between, this is subdural space. the space between the dua matter and the arachnoid matter, and it is filled with serous fluid. The subarachnoid space is space between the arachnoid matter and pia matter. It is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. This is CSF. CSF act as a shock absorber, exchange nutrients and waste, blood and tissue, supply oxygen to the brain. CSF protect brain from desiccation. While when the infection occurs in the meninges, it is called meningitis. The next thing we will discuss is the meninges. As you can see, this is skin, this is periosteum, the bone of skull, and dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater. These are all meninges. The encephalon, that is the brain. It is, we have discussed already, it has forebrain or prosencephalon or mesencephalon or rhombencephalon. The prosencephalon is divided into renicephalon, telecephalon, thalamocephalon, while the midbrain is corpora, quadrangunia and cura cerebri. Hindbrain is divided into cerebellum, pons feroli and medulla oblongata. This slide is being repeated. So let us look at the next slide, that is the forebrain, procephalon. It has three regions: olfactory loop, cerebellum and diencephalon. And this is the posterior view and this is the anterior view. Now it has the central plexus, but that is the lateral parietal loop, and right side parietal loop. Right temporal loop, right hemisphere, longitudinal fissure, and here it is left hemisphere, and it has the lateral plexus, and this is the occipital loop and left occipital and right occipital loop. This is the view of the forebrain. Next we will talk about the forebrain in detail. Olfactory loop, what is their function? They are paired small bodies and present ventrically in the forebrain, covered by cerebral hemisphere dorsally, can be visible only from ventral side. Olfactory loop have olfactory bulb and olfactory tract. It merges the olfactory area of temporal lobe. It connected with the sense of smell. Women have small size of olfactory lobe. Human beings has poor sense of smell. Now when we talk about the cerebellum, that is telecephalon, it has two parts, which are as left and right hemisphere, and the function of which is defined there. We can enlarge it and read it. So left and right, there was a medial longitudinal tissues between their surface of central cortex. It appears for the covered of gray matter. Gray is due to the large collection of systoles. It's folded into related to intelligence, elucidation, GRUI and depression, sulci. We called it. Both are connected with thick layer of tissues, fibers called as corpus callosum. It is a large component in human brain, or that is involved in different functions. Mass of gray matter in ubiquitin is called basal nuclei, and the deeper part of cerebrum is called medulla. So this is the view of the cerebellum. Reducing it back to its original size. Now let's go to another slide, that is plexus and gyrus. As we discussed, as plexus is a depression or fissure in the surface of the brain. Valleys or the hills हम इन्हें कहते हैं. The gyrus is a ridge of the cerebellum cortex. It is generally surrounded by one or more siliceous hills. Anatomy of the brain, siliceous and gyruses. This is siliceous, that is valley, and the hill part is called gyruses. So the next part, that is cerebellum, the anterior loop, and you can see this primary fissure, then arbor vitae, and then this posterior loop, and there was pons, flocculonodular loop, and posterolateral fissure. that is medulla oblongata. Now, corpus callosum, the third ventricle of brain, and nearby parts like pituitary gland are hypothalamus, that is hypophysis, pituitary gland, optic chiasma, hypothalamus, and third ventricle and pineal gland. These are the organs very important in function. They are shown here. Now, medial view of the left hemisphere of human brain. When we look at the left hemisphere, we said that the middle part is divided into left and right hemisphere. So when we look at the left hemisphere of the brain, we came to these parts. This is third ventricle, you can see here, and pineal bodies, period occipital silicis, superior colliculation, choroid plexus, corpus callosum, and gingulatus serratus, and the spectral region, lamina terminals, optic chiasma, hypophysis, pituitary gland, and mammillary body, thalamus and third ventricle, medulla oblongata, pons, cerebellum, and fourth ventricle, and choroid plexus, straight sinus, and tentorius cerebri. In the next part, which is the midbrain, middle part of the brain present between the diencephalon and pons feroli, narrow passage, and it is called, it runs through its length and connect third and fourth ventricles. Midbrain consists of corpora, quadrigemia, and crura cerebri. Corpora, it has two pairs of loops present in dorsal and thick wall of midbrains. Upper pair is called superior colliculata, and the lower pair is called inferior colliculata. Receive impulse from optic nerves, control of coordinate movement of head and response to visual stimuli, while inferior collicula control of coordinate head movement in response to auditory stimulus, while crura cerebri, a pair of thick bands of anterior longitudinal nerve fibers. These fibers connect cerebellum and spinal cord. Its function as relay center from RAS network, which control muscle tone. So the next 5 secondary vehicles of brain are telecephalon, that is the forebrain, diencephalon, hindbrain, and mesencephalon, metercephalon, and myelocephalon, and spinal cord. That is procephalon, forebrain, lateral ventricles हैं इसमें, third ventricles हैं, mesencephalon, midbrain, it's called aqueduct है इसमें, rhombencephalon, that is hindbrain, upper part of fourth ventricle and lower part of fourth ventricle. These are the 5 secondary vesicles of brain: telecephalon, meson, meter, and myelencephalon, and then spinal cord. Spinal nerves, what are they? They are 31 nerves. Pairs of spinal nerves arise from spinal cord. All are mixed types, each nerve formed by union of sensory dorsal root and motor ventral root. Spinal nerves came out of vertebral column through intervertebral formers present on lateral side. Spinal nerves divided into 3 mixed branches, that is ramus dorsalis, ramus ventralis, and communicans. Ramus dorsalis is short dorsal branch intervening skin and muscle of back, while ramus ventricle is longest ventral branch intervening skin and muscle of ventral and lateral side, while communicants are short, communicate spinal cord with the sympathetic ganglion of ANS. Detail of spinal nerves is cervical, thorax, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal gangle. Cervical are 8 pairs, C1 to C8, and it is the neck region, while thorax is the thorax region, that is 12 pairs, T1 to T12, while lumbar is 5 pairs, L1 to L5, and that is abdomen pair, and sacral is 5 pairs, S1 to S5, pelvic region, and coccygeal 1 pair, CO1 is coccyx. So next we will come into cranial nerves, spinal nerves. Nerves divided into cranial nerves arise from the brain, these are 12 pairs, while spinal nerves are 31 pairs, that is arise from the spinal cord. Now type of the nerves based upon the origin. Nerves are based upon the function, that is sensory function, motor, or mixed. Sensory are conduct impulse from sense organs to central nervous system. and conduct motor while conduct impulses from the central nervous system, effectors or motor organs, while mixed heavy sensory as well as motor fibers carry nerve impulse from both the way, that is from the sensory organ to the central nervous system or from the central nervous system to the sensory organs. So this is all about the anatomy of the brain. I hope this will be helpful for you. So for more informative video, do subscribe and like and share the subject expert page. Thank you. Allah.